Hi, I'm Cyndi Edwards from PRmediaNow. Joining us now from southwestern Ontario to discuss today's important news from Atlas Salt is Atlas President Rowland Howe. Hi, Rowland.
Hi, Cyndi. Thanks for having me on here.
Our pleasure. I bet the salt trucks have been very busy in your area, not to mention across much of the eastern third of North America, given January's high impact winter weather events. It's been crazy.
It's certainly been a series of extraordinary weather events, and last weekend Boston got really hammered with snow. Before that, there was a storm came up the east coast, and another storm came west to east across Ontario and Quebec. And these storms just exaggerate the case of you got to be prepared to maintain roads in winter. When you don't, everything grinds to a halt, and it's not safe to travel. And if you're going to maintain roads in winter, you better make sure you got your supplies of rock salt available.
And forecasters are saying events like this are only going to become more frequent. So obviously, we're all excited about the drill program that's now in progress at Great Atlantic. I'm sure you're going to give that drill core, just like this drill core, the Mr. Salt taste test. Still very salty. But let's talk first about the feasibility study, because there are significant developments there. How much of a difference does it make to this project when you're able to access the deposit via an inclined ramp as opposed, or should I through this, as opposed to a vertical shaft?
Certainly, having an incline is a great advantage. And the analogy I like to use is, if you're in the mall, do you choose the escalator or do you wait for the elevator? You can move far more people up the escalator, and it's the same with an incline. You have continuous access to the mine. You also have continuous haulage with a conveyor from the mine to surface. It really is, it's cheaper to produce, to create, and the operating costs are so much lower when you get into production. But if you want to scale them, it's scalable in terms of the conveyor can be easily upgraded incrementally, or you can just put a bigger conveyor in and move a lot more tonnage out of the mine.
Would Great Atlantic be the first underground salt mine in eastern North America accessed through an inclined ramp?
You're right. And, a lot of others would like to have an incline, but the depth to their salt is so much greater than ours. We're about 600 feet. The likes of Goderich is more like 1,800 feet to the top of their salt. So the shallowness of our deposit makes it so much more practical to have an incline.
Well, you mentioned Goderich, and you grew Goderich into the largest underground salt mine in the entire world when you were with Compass Minerals. So no one can fool you when it comes to the engineering side of the equation with respect to these deposits. So is there anything that you've seen to date that could possibly be a fly in the ointment with respect to Great Atlantic's potential to become the next major salt mine in North America and a disruptive, low-cost producer?
No, I mean, we're going through this a very detailed feasibility study, which is designed to identify anything that might be a problem. But from the day one, when I first introduced to this project, it's got, it's a great deposit. It's shallow. It's close to a deep water port. It's got a lot of the factors that you would look for it when you're looking to create a mine, a salt mine in this region.
Sounds like a pageant winner if there was a pageant for salt mines. The first the first drill hole at Great Atlantic is a 500-meter step out, and that's toward the deep water port from the northernmost drill hole, which returned a fabulous intercept. Is it still your plan to provide visuals on this hole as opposed to investors having to wait for assay results from the lab?
Absolutely. I mean, the good thing about drilling for salt is when you hit the salt, just like that core you have in your hand, that is one of our earlier core samples. And you can see it's salt and you can taste it. And
You sure can.
It's pretty obvious that you've got salt.
Why are you so confident about this step out hole?
We have a lot of existing geophysical data, and the holes we've talked about earlier, they actually calibrated the seismic data where we'd seen the intercept with the salt. So all we're doing is projecting that a little further forward to the north.
And how important would it be to confirm that this deposit starts another 500 meters closer to the port?
What we're looking for is to identify the point in the salt deposit where we want to start mining. We go back from there up and develop a ramp down to it. So the entrance to the ramp will be so much closer to the port.
And it appears you're in the home stretch now with the feasibility study, which was launched last July. What has you so impressed with the work that SLR has carried out?
I think just the attention to detail, the questions. We want this to be a third-party independent assessment of the work we've done, and they are so very good at talking about how the mining would go, what it would look like. We've already got some layouts, inventory of type of equipment, and they are testing, and we're going to do it. Part of it will be a market study just to validate what we already know.
Roland, you eat, breathe, and sleep salt. So why do you love this business so much?
Well, salt's such a ubiquitous substance. I mean, you reach for the salt, or you expect to see the salt spreader come down the street in winter, and those expectations are. Somebody's got to meet those expectations, and certainly being in the salt business, um, it's very fulfilling to do that. Not least of which, though, a well-run salt operation generates high margins. You maintain low costs, you generate those high margins, and it's a long-term steady cash flow, which investors, it is a great business.
That's music to a lot of investors' ears, I'm sure. Well, you've been in the industry now for over 30 years. So, are public expectations higher than they've ever been in terms of keeping our highways clear and safe during the winter?
I don't think expectations have changed much, but the thing is that if roads aren't maintained, commercial traffic, trucks, they can't get through. They don't, and we're already concerned about supply chain. And despite all the other pressures on delivery trucks, if the roads are impassable too, it's an impossible task. So being able to maintain winter roads in a climate like ours is it's an imperative. We have to be able to do it, and people have to have salt on hand to be able to maintain those roads.
Well, security of road salt supply in Eastern North America is an issue that's garnering increased attention during this pandemic, given supply chain bottlenecks and sharply higher shipping costs. So, how is it that we've come to rely on Chile and Egypt to meet so much of our annual demand, which would be at least 30%?
I think over time, the mines in the area have been able to increase their output, but not enough. And the availability of offshore products, the cheap freight rates, they've allowed us to supplement a shortfall of production locally with product from overseas. Now we know freight rates are starting to, have gone really, really high. They'd probably back off a little bit, but we're all so much more sensitive to that supply chain question. Relying on a long supply chain link is going to cause problems. So people are going to be looking for something closer to home. And when it comes to road salt for the East Coast, our Great Atlantic Salt Project is right there on the doorstep.
Could be a real game changer for sure. Roland Howe from Atlas Salt, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Cyndi.
And for more information, you can go to atlassalt.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.